Next up, we are privileged to have Dr. Valerie Williams join us today. We are going to go over updates and some congratulations to the team. So we will then wrap up at the end with those questions that we talked about from the committees and some time for committee work if we need it. So join me in welcoming Dr. Valerie Williams.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. And thank you, everybody. This is such a cool thing to do every year. I'm delighted to join you. So on this first slide, there are a couple of these. I just want you all to recognize how far we've come since IPE, or interdisciplinary education, got started at the Health Sciences Center in earnest. And the 1990 is there because back in, I came here in 1989, been here a long time. In 1990, I came here as Associate Dean for Interdisciplinary Programs in the College of Medicine. At that time, the way the College of Medicine defined it was that people from pediatrics and surgery should talk to each other. Not really interdisciplinary, but certainly conceptually trying to get their thoughts together around what kind of engagement should we have across the disciplines. And there were two programs underway at that time that set an extraordinary example. Barbara Bonner had the Interdisciplinary Child Abuse and Neglect program going on. She and Terry Gallmeyer were the first two people who, quote, adopted me on the campus because their work had been interdisciplinary for several years, led through a grant activity that they had underway. That program has continued, was extraordinary in its collaboration, including with the Norman campus, with social work, with law, with a lot of the disciplines in the health professions on this campus. Two exceptional leaders who had incredible impact on so many trainees who went through their programs. We also had a geriatrics program. So we had both ends of the continuum, something in pediatrics and then something in geriatrics, that got the largest grant for educational activity from a foundation that the university had ever seen at that time. That was geriatrics. It was led at that time by the department chair, Dr. Marie Bernard, and it continued to grow for several years. And from that basis, lots of other things sort of tried to take root and seeded. Some sprouted, some have grown, but most have been really restricted by how to engage everybody, right? Then along comes Dr. Wisdom, and she'd been doing interdisciplinary work because of her background in neurology for a long time, again, as a clinician. But Dr. Wisdom and her family foundation made a serious investment in trying to get something launched and trying to look at how do we build a cadre of faculty and engaged learners and staff, people who are really looking to build out our capacity for interdisciplinary and interprofessional learning. That in 2012 that you see on the slide there was an exceptional investment, both in terms of the potential and the willingness for an outside entity to look at what needed to happen in healthcare interventions, and understanding across the disciplines, investing in the university and in this faculty and student body to really make change. And that seed grant that still continues, that some of our chairs were talking about, but that seeded such an exceptional engagement by faculty and students and staff at this campus. And I think Peggy Wisdom and her family foundation deserve a round of applause just for that investment over time and the willingness to do that work with us. And so what you see from 2013 to 2023 are sort of key activities that happened over the years since then. That decade has been remarkably productive. And it's hard to think about. It's been 10 years. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about how many people at the campus, faculty, students, and staff, have engaged in some capacity with interprofessional education, interdisciplinary work, and really building out all of the things that each of the chairs and co-chairs have talked about this morning to what it looks like today. That's a remarkable accomplishment for something what do I call it? It's not loosely organized, but it's an affiliation. It's a really networked activity where people who have decided to take on teamwork and leadership in a serious capacity. And I think that's a lot of what happens with interdisciplinary, interprofessional work out in the field. It is not ever a thing that somebody can just sit out there and say, okay, now you're part of this, so you're going to do all these things and do them perfectly. It's always a decision that's both a collaborative decision and a content-rich decision about people being willing to come forward, share their expertise, be listeners, be engaged team members, and look at the impact and outcomes for who's supposed to benefit by this on the other end. That's exceptional work. And to the extent that we are enabling our students to have those experiences, whether they are in simulation or in some form of didactics or in clinical or in community engagement, each one of those experiences plants an interesting kind of a seed in someone about, oh, this is how you get this done. And here's why it matters. And those are the things that when I think about education, there's the hard parts of it, and then there's the gift part of it, where someone more experienced than ourselves helps us carve that path into a way of working that enriches our lives as professionals. And you all have done that. That's you. That is all you. Whether it's corralling students to get them to engage, or chasing them down because they're running 9 miles ahead, or finding them when they get lost in the weeds, or seeking them out to try to connect with them about an opportunity. That's what the faculty do here. You guys, it's faculty and the staff, are sort of the people who remain in keeping this investment moving forward. So I want to thank you and congratulate you on now more than a decade, but at least a decade of work that got us to where we are today, and really speak to how that's evolving based on the university strategic plan and some of the things that the Dean's Council, the Provost, the President, and others are interested in and concerned about in Oklahoma, and how we can continue to contribute to that. So Sarah, you can go on to the next slide. So our funding history, as I mentioned in brief, is Wisdom Family Foundation, operational money, right? This was not seed grant money for doing research or whatever else. This was operations money. Foundations rarely ever give state entities, which OU is, operational money. That was just extraordinary in so many ways. The foundation took on that funding to enable us to do some particular things with it. In about 2020, I think it was, we got the fee approved. Again, with some conversation between Dr. Wisdom and the provost and myself and others around how do we transition to a supported activity. Margaret and Laura Fenton and a number of others did a huge amount of work to try to come up with a reasoned fee that was aligned with the fee structure that we had at the university, that fit for what we were trying to do, broadly speaking, across the colleges, that was neither too much or too little in terms of building out this curriculum menu over the next couple of years from that date to ensure that everybody had an opportunity to do something that was IPE related. What happened with the fee, you see that next little button point there, is that the fee was discontinued. The university is in an interesting position with regard to the way that fees and tuition are structured, because we're based on a formula grant. So we get our state allocation based on a formula. That formula is based on a peer group of schools. So it's based by college, in effect, by a group of college peers. So they're largely within our region. They're supposed to be from schools like ours, and that varies in terms of what the region includes, and being within a certain percentage of what that fee and tuition structure is for the overall cost of education. The way the formula works, if you want to change tuition, since it's a total amount and they're together, the only way you can change tuition is to change the fees. So if you want to raise one and your peer group hasn't changed, you have to figure out how to lower the other. And here we have our little IPE sort of fee standing out there. It's like its little head is just sticking up. It's part of the provost's office. It's like a little piece of something that the provost looked at and said, okay, so maybe that one we don't need to have, because the regents are looking broadly at how to change the financial structure for the university in order to do all the things that you've seen in the university strategic plan. And it's a lot. We have set ourselves on a pathway through the leadership of President Harris, the regents, the provosts, and all of the college leaders that we have to have OU take a very different position in the future as a university than we have had in the past. People used to say, oh yeah, football and OU, and that was the connection. And now there's a very intentional effort to move OU into the educational sphere, in some ways that I haven't seen in the 30 some odd years that I have been here, to really raise the bar. In order to do that, lots of things, and many of you are aware of many of the things that are shifting, and the strategic plan is our guide for that. The Health Sciences Strategic Plan and the OU strategic plan. So when the fee was removed, what ended up happening in our budget conversations this year is thinking about, okay, how do we fund the core components of this program in an effective way? Look at how faculty, staff, students are deployed within it. What kinds of things do we really need as impact and outcomes? What's the process work that has to happen? Those conversations are ongoing with the Dean's Council. But for the fiscal year 25, the budget funds that I have available are funds that are in my immediate office from savings that we've had over the last several years. And I've elected to deploy those to continue IPE, but we had to do it at about $200,000 or so less than what we had available before. And that was looking at some of the fixed costs that we have. We've had wonderful grant engagement with the College of Medicine and others that added some money to the resources that we've had available. We've had sort of student engagement in all kinds of ways, faculty engagement in all kinds of ways that was paid for. And now I'm trying to get that refined down to what can we afford in this interim year until we can get into the budget cycle where the university can look at how to deploy resources toward IPE. And how do we continue to sustain the program activities that are core, of many of which you've talked about during the committee reviews. So for FY25, we have a budget. It's about $200,000 less than it was. For FY26, we will know better what exactly it takes to deliver the programming under this core set of activities, much of which is driven by the accreditation standards, where we have to provide certain kinds of things out in the community for students with clinical experiences, and where we want to provide those enhanced experiences that give any learner an opportunity to do better in their career and job seeking activities, to get the cord and the transcript notation or whatever else we can provide. So that's where we are in making a transition for 25, sort of pulling in to the tightest component that we can and keeping faculty, staff, and students engaged in that context. Sarah, you can go to the next slide. So what's changing for 25 is the student workers. When Margaret and I had the conversation about the budget, we talked about who needs to be informed about what's happening so people can make decisions for themselves about, can you do it this way or do you need to do something different? And the student workers were one of the first groups that were informed. I think there were three groups: the staff, the students, and the bus drivers. And there may have been some other folks, but and the students typically, if they need an assistantship or work study money, what I'll call work study money, that's a pretty serious decision for someone who's still in school about, are they going to have the resources to do what they need to do during the school year? So Margaret informed them about where things were, said that there would be volunteer opportunities, and that we didn't have funding available for them for FY25. And they made some decisions about what they could or couldn't do and got themselves redeployed into other kinds of tasks and processes associated with that. So we'll likely have some students, but their nature of engagement will be a little bit different than in the past. For and some of the work was reassigned again. You've heard that as we were talking about this morning. The MOV was the idea for the MOV originally came out of Daniel Gavrelli and the team that did all of the work about, let's be bold and do this amazing thing. And we were thinking, we're never going to have resources for that. And then the College of Medicine got this amazing grant. We were able to design and purchase a vehicle, have it wrapped, as Margaret was worried about all of the things associated with getting this bad boy bus. I mean, it's pretty incredible, but getting it done, got delivered. We had grant funding to help manage it for that first year that we had it, year and a half maybe, that we had it. And the grant that the College of Medicine has concluded. They have another grant, but it's not about that. And so we had to, in light of the financial situation that we're in, turn that responsibility back to the College of Medicine. The drivers got sort of transferred over or moved to a different employment circumstance. And so now for the MOV, it'll be a matter of figuring out what does outreach look like for the College of Medicine with regard to the MOV. It is still called the Health Sciences Explorer. They would like to partner. I just don't know yet, and Margaret doesn't know yet, what is our ability to deploy faculty to it look like, given that we are trying to maintain a core set of things. There's also a growing recruitment activity at the Health Sciences campus. Some of you may be aware that we've expanded the recruiting arm of the central part of the Health Sciences. And so it's possible that through that and the recruitment advisors and the College of Medicine and the colleges, that something will grow around the use of the MLV, and hopefully that will engage faculty identified in the colleges as connected to interdisciplinary education. But that will be a college level decision, and it'll have to start with the College of Medicine deciding what's their plan for the use of the vehicle, since they're now managing that process. We lost our biostatistician again through part of this. Did she graduate? Yes. So there you go. So we haven't lost her yet, but she's on her way to new and better and brighter things as a biostatistician. But a lot of the base data and the framework for setting up what you see in the Power BI slides, all of the data slides, has already been established. A lot of the kinks have been worked out. The material is available because of all of that work in a downloadable or searchable form by college. So you can look at your individual data and be able to report some of that, and then you can see the collective data about it. And if we can figure out how to navigate around getting biostatistics or statistical help, we'll sort that out in the year ahead. We do need ongoing volunteers for the community engaged work around the non-clinic and non-simulation faculty that'll need to continue to be involved. We're not going to not start new projects because, again, this year we just need to stabilize where we are, see what we're producing, look at our outcomes, and be able to report those to the individual deans, some of whom are very familiar with IPE and others who are just getting started in their dean roles or just starting to see it. Because the faculty have been so great, there hasn't really been a lot of need for the deans to be intimately involved in this, but they are now being engaged to look at what do we do going forward. And the piece that we've been able to do in the past around conference registrations or whatever else, we'll probably have to curtail that for the year ahead. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't other monies being invested in the colleges around educationally related things. So I think what we want to do is be sure that folks are transitioning from asking the IPE office about that to looking at conferences where you've participated and making that a request if you are the IPE designee or one of the designees for your college, to make that a request to your department and or dean's office, because the visibility for the colleges, I think, has also been pretty remarkable because of the Nexus participation. Sarah, you can go on to the next one. Org chart, please download it from the website so you can see how we're structured. Largely, you should all be familiar with this, with our reporting structure to our Senior Vice President and Provost, Gary Raskob, and then the way the office is structured as of June 10th, with the IPE faculty who are reimbursed, the IPE faculty who are part of the IEPA and are in effect volunteers, and then the teaching faculty associated with the programming delivery that we are counting toward the cord or the transcript notation, or hopefully eventually a certificate, and the office staff who are connected to academic affairs and faculty development. Here they all are in all their wonder. These are an amazing group of people. Absolutely give them a round of applause. They are incredible innovators and contributors and thought leaders and team members who keep so many irons in the fire. I mean, if you've ever seen the circus thing of people with spinning plates, these are the folks who have the plates spinning and really haven't dropped a single thing in a decade of work. Not all of them have been involved in a decade. Margaret has, in terms of this program. And it's a pretty extraordinary thing. I think the thing that I would ask each of you to do in thinking about how your college is building on this work going forward is really thinking about who are the staff who support you, because they may be in your immediate department, they may be in the dean's office, they may be people, you know, sort of a step removed from you in some capacity. But I would want to be sure that you're also thinking about how you're acknowledging them and their support and assistance in helping, whether it's, again, corralling students, getting you to the right meetings, making sure that you're aware of things that are going on where you can share the message about what's available through interprofessional education, and being sure that they are also credited with being that support, because oftentimes they are working behind the scenes, doing stuff that they don't necessarily understand the why behind it. They just know the what has to be done. And I think about the people who are the FAS, the faculty activity system proxies, for example. You know, that's potentially somebody's assistant who's just trying to help with CVs. We started FAS so that people would have a way to recognize their contributions around interdisciplinary work and have a way to put that in their CV and have it reported on a consistent basis. And then FAS was adopted by the campus because we had already instituted a system and piloted it to try to see something that would work across the campus for capturing the CV. I personally have one of those horrifying CVs that's, you know, too long, but the reasoning behind having that information in an accessible form, and this was 5 years ago when we started FAS, when all of the deans sitting around a table were they were in the conversation that legal counsel had, saying the faculty activity system is going to be where the university looks for data about faculty work, outcomes, and productivity. That wasn't this year. It wasn't 2 years ago. That was back when we first started it after the second pilot year, that was communicated. So while lots of people are surprised about where we are today, it's been a long pathway to get us to where we are today in terms of participation. So thank the staff. Absolutely recognize the staff who've contributed to all of this, in addition to the faculty and students who make this stuff happen. You can go to the next one, Sarah. So you all are familiar with this plan, and this is probably a thing that I would update to this new fiscal year with a reference back to 2018, because I think this is still programmatically, again, based on your discussions, still programmatically appropriate. And if it's tied now to the direction of the new strategic plan of the university and the strategic plan for IPE, we can start putting things in quotes around, this was inaugurated in whatever year, and here is what it looks like in the year going forward. Because I think the currency of this is still pretty important. This idea around synthesis, and I think Keith Kaczynski talked about it and others, this idea that how we bring it all together is critically important to what our purpose is as a health sciences center. And I think those opportunities, now that the curriculum is fairly well defined and stable, are growing in terms of what next. So the Unity Series collaboration, again, same thing, from awareness level through synthesis, really important components to have in place. Go to the next one, Sarah. I think there's a next one. Yeah, and here are the numbers. So then the question was asked a little earlier today, has it doubled? Yeah, it's almost doubled. The APD didactic from 800 in 2016 to over 1,400 participants in 2024. And simulation, look at the numbers there. From 77, which was where sort of EPIC left off in sort of that next year where things got started, to 631. That's extraordinary. Extraordinary. On a campus where the curriculum leaves very little room for more. To think that this number of students has chosen to engage in these activities. Same thing with clinic, from 77 to 600, faculty numbers having gone up almost double to 114 engaged. And then the patient population that's been able to be seen because of the work at Crossings and Cole Community Center, and now at Keys and the places that came before. Again, pretty extraordinary numbers. So you all, again, are to be congratulated. And I would say that the awards, there've been 2 awards this last year. This George E.T. Bolt Award from Nexus was a big deal. Big deal. This is a national named award that came to the University of Oklahoma because of the work of Unity Clinic. All of the faculty, students, and staff who are engaged in making that work. Extraordinary contributions to redesigning both healthcare education and healthcare delivery simultaneously to be better integrated and more interprofessional while demonstrating outcomes. How cool is that? You should all have a copy of that hanging on your wall. You did that. You made that possible for our students to be able to have that as part of their experience and part of their academic portfolio going forward, that they were engaged in work that obtained a national award. I think there's one more that is about this little education magazine article. OU Health Sciences is highlighted as the featured university in education magazine. And within the story, and there's a link to this, the link is in the materials. Within the story, it says, interprofessional education is a cornerstone of the university's approach, spearheaded by the dedicated Interdisciplinary Learning Programs Office. Here, students, faculty, and researchers from various health disciplines work together, mirroring real-world settings and fostering a holistic understanding of patient care and public health issues. Over 800 full-time faculty, 80 postdoctoral researchers, and nearly 800 residents and fellows contribute to this vibrant learning community. Further enriching the experience, the OU Health Sciences Center actively expands clinical rotations and experiential learning opportunities across all health and public health programs. The student-led Unity Clinic is a prime example, offering invaluable hands-on experience that prepares students for the complexities of 21st century healthcare. I cannot say to you how many accolades you all have earned and deserve based on the work that you've done so far. But much like a symphony orchestra, one note playing is not going to be enough going forward either. And I think our continued efforts have to be about outreach and engagement of faculty, students, staff, to understand what IPE is, to be able to talk about what its added value proposition is. It's not so much that it's a thing unto itself. It's an added value. If we think back, and when I think back to all of the experiences that I've had professionally, it's been those times when I have been a contributing member of a team and had a network, a group of colleagues around me who understood what I was trying to do, why it mattered, and what I could uniquely bring to the table, and me having that same understanding of them, that have elevated the experiences that I've had professionally from work to what am I passionate about? Why am I doing this? The work is good, but to be able to be passionate about something and to understand how you fit within sort of this remarkable insanity sometimes that is healthcare and public health and the community of trying to improve outcomes for people takes that capacity for bringing the puzzle pieces together. And I think that's what interprofessional education largely is about, what it does and what it enables. It's a value add piece in ways that create something that I don't think you could have without that synergy. So thank you for your attention to me this morning. I think the larger issues are paying attention to the path that you've set and being excited about what our next steps are going to be. In particular, getting to that point where we can submit something to the regents about a structured program that can be part of what OU offers beyond our borders here in Oklahoma and in the state. Okay, thanks.